Jake Turner had been a trucker for 15 years. He had driven through every kind of weather, crossed desolate highways at midnight, and seen enough roadkill to last a lifetime. But nothing came close to what he experienced on Route 666. The job was simple: drive from Texas to Arizona, hauling industrial equipment for a construction company. The payout was decent, and he needed the cash. But there was a catch. He had to take Route 666, a highway truckers avoided at all costs. At first, Jake didn't care. Ghost stories didn't pay bills. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the road stretched out in front of him, he started to feel uneasy. That's when his CB radio crackled. "Breaker, breaker, 19. You out there, Turner?" Jake leaned forward, adjusting the radio. It was Big Mike. "Mike, what's up, man?" "You're taking 666, aren't you?" Jake frowned. "Yeah, so..." A pause. Then Mike's voice came through, lower, quieter. "Turn back." Jake let out a laugh. "Oh, come on, Mike. Don't tell me you believe those ghost stories." Another pause. Then, "It ain't a joke, Jake. I lost a friend on that road." Jake hesitated. "What do you mean?" "A crash?" Mike's voice was barely a whisper now. "I mean, they found his truck, but not him." A shiver ran down Jake's spine. "Look, man, just don't stop. No matter what you see. Keep driving. Promise me that, Jake." Then the radio went silent. Jake shook his head, trying to brush off the uneasy feeling crawling up his neck. "It's just a road. Nothing's gonna happen." He flicked on his high beams. The road stretched endlessly before him, flanked by twisted dead trees and patches of thick fog rolling in from nowhere. The night was eerily quiet. No insects, no wind, no distant headlights from another vehicle. Just him, alone. His fingers tapped against the wheel as he hummed along to the country song playing on the radio. But then, the radio distorted. The song slowed down, warped, like a record player losing power. Then, a whisper. "Jake." Jake's breath hitched. He turned the radio off. Silence. His heart pounded as he tried to focus on the road. The last thing he needed was his mind playing tricks on him. But then, he saw it, up ahead, standing in the middle of the highway. A man. Jake's grip on the wheel tightened. The man wore a tattered hoodie, ripped jeans, and no shoes. His head was tilted downward, face obscured by the shadow of his hood. A hitchhiker. Jake's stomach twisted. "Don't stop." He honked his horn, hoping the guy would move. But he didn't flinch. Jake slowed just enough to swerve around him. But as he passed, the hitchhiker lifted his head. Jake's breath caught in his throat. His skin was gray, like rotting flesh. His eyes were hollow, black pits. And his mouth. His mouth stretched into a grin too wide, too sharp. Jake slammed the gas. The truck roared forward. The hitchhiker disappeared beneath his headlights. For a brief second, relief flooded Jake's chest. But then, a chill ran through the cab. The air turned ice cold. The radio crackled. A voice whispered, "You shouldn't have done that, Jake." Jake's stomach dropped, because that voice was his own. Jake's hands trembled on the wheel. He needed to calm down. Just a trick of the light. Just fatigue messing with his head. He took a deep breath and glanced at the rearview mirror. His blood turned to ice. The hitchhiker was sitting in the passenger seat. Jake's throat went dry. His hood was down now, revealing sunken cheekbones, lifeless gray skin, and those black, soulless eyes. Jake slammed the brakes. The truck screeched to a halt. He looked again. The seat was empty. Jake swallowed, hands shaking as he reached for his CB radio. "Big Mike, you there?" Static. Then, a voice. But it wasn't Mike. "Jake, you're going the wrong way." The headlights flickered. Jake's breath hitched, because the road ahead was gone. Jake blinked, heart hammering. The asphalt had disappeared. In its place, an endless stretch of fog. Shapes moved inside it. Jake grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of the truck. The air was thick, suffocating. The road was gone. No sign of his truck. No sign of where he had been. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Jake turned. A shadow loomed in the mist. Tall, thin. Jake ran. He sprinted into the fog, legs burning, lungs gasping for breath. But no matter how far he ran, the road never reappeared. Then, a whisper, right beside his ear. "You should have kept driving, Jake." Everything went black. Days later, Big Mike was driving the same highway. No one had heard from Jake. His truck was found abandoned on Route 666, but no sign of Jake. Mike's hands trembled on the wheel. He had a bad feeling. Then, he saw something ahead, a hitchhiker, wearing a trucker's jacket. Mike's breath caught. "Jake?" The figure slowly lifted his head. His black, hollow eyes locked onto Mike. The CB radio crackled. "Don't stop, Mike." Mike's stomach dropped. He floored the gas. As he sped past, he glanced in the mirror. Jake was sitting in the passenger seat, smiling. A new trucker, unaware of the stories, drove down Route 666. Up ahead, he saw a hitchhiker, a man with a wide, sharp grin. The cycle continued. "Some roads don't forget their travelers. Will you be the next one?" The night was pitch black, the kind where the horizon disappears and the road ahead feels endless. Trucker Ethan Graves had driven through all kinds of highways, but Route 13 had a reputation that made even seasoned drivers uneasy. The stories varied. Ghost trucks appearing out of nowhere, truckers going missing, and eerie voices on the radio. Ethan wasn't one to believe in that kind of nonsense. But the moment he entered Route 13, something felt wrong. The air grew unnaturally cold. His radio buzzed with static, and his headlights dimmed for no reason. His CB radio crackled. "Breaker 19, you out there, Ethan?" It was Tommy, an old friend and fellow trucker. "Yeah, Tommy, I'm here. What's up?" A pause. Then in a hushed, serious tone. "You on Route 13? "Yeah, why?" Another pause. "Ethan, whatever you do, if you see a convoy of trucks with no drivers, don't join them. Keep driving, no matter what." Ethan let out a dry chuckle. "Come on, man, you're messing with me." Tommy's voice dropped even lower. "This ain't a joke. I lost a buddy to that road last year. He saw the convoy, and now he's part of it." Then the radio went dead. Ethan swallowed hard. It's just a stupid story. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. Hours passed. The highway remained empty. No other vehicles, no lights, just the endless road. Then, in the distance, he saw headlights. Not just one. A convoy of trucks. At least 10 of them, all moving in perfect unison. But something was wrong. The trucks were too clean. No dirt, no scratches, no rust. As if they had just rolled out of a factory. And most disturbing of all, no drivers. Ethan's pulse quickened. No way. His CB radio crackled again. A deep, distorted voice whispered, "Join us, Ethan." His breath hitched. He didn't recognize the voice. He gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding. As the convoy approached, his truck lurched forward on its own. The gas pedal pressed itself down. His speed matched the convoy's, as if something, or someone, was pulling him in. He yanked at the wheel, trying to slow down. But the truck wasn't listening. The convoy was pulling him in. The road ahead twisted into an unnatural fog, swirling like a black vortex. His headlights flickered, and then he was inside. Ethan's truck was no longer his. His hands were off the wheel, but the truck kept driving on its own. The air inside the cab was freezing. His breath came out in visible clouds. He looked around at the other trucks. Their windows were black. No movement, no signs of life. Then a figure appeared, a shadowy figure standing on the hood of one of the convoy trucks. It turned its head toward him, revealing glowing white eyes. A voice echoed inside his cab. "You are part of us now." Ethan screamed and yanked the wheel. The truck wouldn't budge. The radio static intensified, growing louder and louder until the truck stopped. Suddenly, everything was silent. Ethan looked at the road. The convoy was gone. The highway was empty again. Was it over? Or was he now a part of something? He couldn't escape. Ethan pulled into a truck stop diner hours later, still shaking. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, walked up. "You all right, hun? You look like you saw a ghost." Ethan nodded, voice hoarse. "You could say that." She tilted her head. "You weren't on Route 13, were you?" Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Yeah. Why?"